Hey there, and thanks for joining me today on this demo for the WebDataGrid. I'd like to show you how to persist moved columns in the WebDataGrid. Now with NetAdvantage 2009 Volume 1, the WebDataGrid featured the ability to move columns. But the ability to persist where those columns were moved to is not something that's available out of the box. So if I take the URL column and I drag it over here, chances are, as a user, I'm probably going to want that to be like that the next time. So we've got some code that's implemented in here that will allow that to happen. So if I copy this URL here and open it up in a new tab, you can see the grid has persisted that value and read it back when the user came back to the page. All right, well, let me show you how it's done. Okay, so here we are with the script manager on the page, the WebDataGrid, and an object data source. So it's the basic scenario of we're binding the grid to the object data source. Now, what we want to do is come over to our Smart tag and choose Edit Behaviors. From here, let's go ahead and enable column moving. That's all we have to do as far as that's concerned. Now, the only other thing that we want to build in for a hook is off of the WebDataGrid, we want to handle the event for the column moved. So we'll come over to the events here, and we have the column moving, column moved event. So let's create a handler there. So what will happen is on the page load, we'll look and see if any of the customizations to the grid have been saved somewhere, and if so, we'll load them back. And in the column moved event handler, what we'll do is take a look at the grid itself and look at each column to see where its new position is. Now, the way that we'll be implementing this code is by using a couple extension methods that I've created for the WebDataGrid. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to dig into here. So here I have this class, the WebDataGrid extensions. And what will happen, like I said, is we'll serialize the grid layout. We'll be using this method here. And basically all that's happening here is all the work's being done in this for loop here. We'll look at each one of the columns, and we will basically build up a buffer of text to say what the column key is and what its visible index is. So we'll pass in the changed column key and the changed column visible index. And that's what we'll pass in the event handler for the column moved. So all of the other ones will basically grab the values that they currently have. The changed ones will have the updated values, and we'll return that to string. And it basically will create a grouped list of key and visible index, and this template here will be repeated over and over again. So let's go ahead and use this method in our page. So we'll come to the code behind of our page here, and when the column is moved, first thing we'll do is set aside the layout. So I can call this method off of the WebDataGrid because I'm using an extension method. So we'll serialize the grid layout. Now we have to pass in a changed column key and the changed column index. So the event args for this event method will have that. So we can take a look at the column, pass in the key, and also pass in the visible index. At this point, you can choose any type of persistence mechanism that you want. You could write this out to a cookie, you could save it to a database. For my purposes right here, what I'm going to do is go ahead and save this in session. Just because it's easy and we don't have to worry about configuring much else. And I'll give the key grid layout. Okay, so once someone has changed one of the positions of the columns, this code will run and we have it saved in session. And then what we have to do is read it back in upon page load. So let's take a look, and if this page is not a postback, and if we have our item in session, then what we can do is take what's in that session variable and feed it back into the grid. So let's switch back over to our other extension method and take a look at what we're doing here. Now I tried to flesh out this method a little more than what you might see in most demo code, just so that if you wanted to take these extension methods and plop them in your solution, you could do that. There's still maybe some more you might want to do, but you can see at least what I'm doing is taking a look at the layout argument that comes in and making sure that we have a colon and have a semicolon, because that's what we're going to split the string on in order to get our groups. So if that doesn't exist, we'll throw an argument exception and kind of give you an idea of what you need to do. So the layout's not valid, and you need to generate the string by calling the serialized grid layout method. So then we'll come and look at the layout, make sure we have a value of it, and then we'll split based off of the semicolon. Now, if you remember from the pattern, the semicolon will delimit the groups. Okay, so then we have a number of groups, and for each one of the groups, we'll split them by the colon. And what's on the two sides of the colon will be the key and also the visible index. So if we have two parts that we've split, what we'll do is find the column within our columns collection by the key. And so the 0 index of our parts array would be the key. Once we have that column, then what we can do is set the visible index. We do have to convert that string into an integer, so we're doing this in such a way that it won't throw any exceptions. So that's basically it. All we're doing is taking that string, splitting it up, and applying the values that are associated with the column to the visible index. It's pretty straightforward. So what we can do here then, once we know that we have a value in our session, we can simply call WebDataGrid, apply grid layout, and we'll just pull it out of session. All right, let's go ahead and try it and see how it works. So let's take the URL field over here and drag it to the front. And so now when we copy this URL and open it up in a new tab, we should have the exact same layout. And there it is. So again, the two big takeaways to this video are extension methods are a great way to extend the Infragistics controls and add your functionality to it. And also, when you're persisting any of these changes, I put it in session, but you can put it anywhere else that makes sense. Well, thanks a lot for checking out this video. And if you have any questions about what you've seen, please feel free to send me an email at cshoemaker@infragistics.com. If you want to take a look at the documentation for any one of our products, you can go to infragistics.com/docs. And if you'd like to contact our support, you can go to infragistics.com/support. Thanks again for checking us out, and make sure you check out the website where you'll find a lot more videos that'll help you get started with the NetAdvantage toolset.
Infragistics. On the web at infragistics.com.